revealing of the self is like the revealing of the field of bliss. These are not fluffy concepts. These are not New Age concepts. Yogis have been working with these principles and practices for literally thousands of years that we know of, maybe even longer, but that we know of historically. And greetings, everyone. Happy new moon time. Happy eclipse time. What a day. This one's kind of no ordinary eclipse just because there's so much happening all at once. On just a couple hours, just after 7 a.m. California time today, Saturn moved from Aquarius to Pisces. And if you don't really pay attention to astrology, it's kind of okay. But that only happens once every 2.5 years, and it marks really a new era of each of our lives. Like, when you say 2.5 years, you're in your whatever era, as we kind of move through the trajectory of our life. It's going to be a season, and there's a fundamental shift of that season right now, in which if you do pay attention to those types of things, I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's sometimes incredibly helpful, then you do notice that there's definite transits that happen that are trackable. And you can't ever really predict quite what they'll be, but you know there'll be a shift, and you know that there's going to be certain new domains of life that are going to kind of come into the forefront. That sometimes the relationship is at the forefront of the life. And because it needs to be, that's where the work is. Saturn shows you where the work is. And then if you work, and if you're cool with working, and you realize that actually when you work at things get better, then you're not so scared of work, not so scared of hard times, because then you recognize that actually inside of that is benevolence. People get scared of Saturn because it rules the things that we don't like, sickness and suffering and death, but it also rules all types of wonderful things like hard work, like good sense of discipline. And people don't, this is more like austerities, but no, in order to have fun in life, also as we get older, you need a certain amount of discipline to go along with it, to balance it out. A certain amount of discipline keeps you alive. A certain amount of discipline keeps you healthy. A certain amount of discipline keeps the mind well contained. But tightness, uptightness, constricts, contracts to where then the prana can't flow. So the dance of life is, how do we find ease? This is what the zero gravity practices and teachings are about, which also today on this eclipse and new moon, we're initiating the zero gravity teachings in the Life Force Academy. And you say, well, it's not great to begin something on an eclipse. Well, unless that's true, not a day that they would recommend to propose, not a day to begin the new business, things that need to operate in the material world, but it's considered highly auspicious to begin a spiritual sadhana, to begin some sort of disciplined practice that opens you up into the real reality. It's considered highly auspicious to begin a practice on an eclipse. And so eclipses can bring quite magical things, but often they're edgy and challenging and difficult. And sometimes you'll notice you get natural disasters more often around eclipses. I don't know if they could actually look at this. We should be able to look at the statistics around that. But I think most people who do statistics are not paying attention to the subtle nuances yet, but more and more maybe we are as a human race, as we go through all of the different trials and tribulations that we're going through as a collective. There's absolutely the possibility that we can allow all the very difficult things that happen that we all experience together as a collective to open us up, to help make us wiser, And so also that takes some discipline, because it's easy to get swung by all of the noise. And we're still trying to figure out as a species how to operate with these things, because they held a lot of power, and you can experience firsthand, for instance, an earthquake in Myanmar and Thailand, and seeing just tremendous suffering. And that's just one nowadays of like 100 things per day is what it feels like. the catastrophe. So that's why it remains super important to take care of one's joy. And to take care of joy doesn't mean that you are trying to feel cheerful about things that you don't feel cheerful about at all, but finding the things that are also present that you do feel cheerful about, and have enough discipline with the mind to not allow the mind to be swung too far into miseries. All of us have a Dharma in life. There's no way we're going to get happy unless we're not going on the great heroic journey of discovering the Dharma of each of our lives. And in the West, we're often contextualizing that as like career. But the career is just one of 12 domains of life, 12 houses. And so career will come to the forefront of your life for a season. And maybe many seasons, depending on all sorts of things. But all of us are not career-oriented in the same way. And so hopefully as a culture, as a human culture, we're evolving to also realize and recognize where sometimes as a collective we're overemphasizing certain domains of life. Where you overemphasize materialism and you lose connectivity to the more subtle things that keep humans happy, like art, like theater, like poetry, like music. And when those things aren't emphasized in society, we don't think the society is going to suffer tremendously. Of course it is. And you can just look through history and you see how when you lose these types of things, societies destroy themselves. So what we can do each individually is to kind of to work to be in attunement, and it's nothing that just reveals itself in all of a sudden. But my experience is it's a constant unfolding that really doesn't have, I don't think, it's not an ending point. It's not like something that you get to, but something more that you dwell in, that you're in courtship and concert with. Not something that is outside of us, but it's the feeling, it's experience of almost like your heart turning inside out, like a blossoming, like a flower blossoming of your heart. And that's not a blossoming that then blossoms and then wilts away, but the kind of mystical rose that's always blossoming, the continued blossoming. And that's what Kundalini is all about. That's what it is. It's not some unnatural thing. It's the experience of the human organism as this wonderful instrument that can bring you into deep bliss and real happiness. And that deep bliss and that real happiness will reveal your purpose to you. And so then it's not that you're trying to get away from the things of the world. You're trying to follow the path of your Dharma that will often take you right into the middle of the things of the world, where work is to be done. Yeah? Follow the bliss. But even Joseph Campbell, I was told, said towards the end of his life that wouldn't it have been wiser if I would have said, follow your blisters? Because that's what it takes to follow your bliss. It takes doing sometimes the scary thing. Not just because I don't want to feel scared, but because that's where your path is. That's where the intuition is guiding you. That's how you know it's intuition. Often, not exclusively, but often how you know it's intuition is it's guiding you to the thing you really, part of you doesn't want to do. But another deeper part of you knows this is the thing to do, because it's where you're going to find love somehow. But if we're all too much in the material domain of life, to where we're not dropping underneath the surface on a regular basis, so that all of that noise clears, and you connect into the center of life, of your life, of who you are, of what you are. And that's not an intellectual endeavor. That's an endeavor of numero uno, concentrating the chi, prana. This is the zero gravity sequence. Number one, dharana, which is a concentration of the chi. Dhara it means a stream. Dhara. So dharana is a stream of awareness in a relatively singular direction. How do you do that in the yoga practice? You say, oh my mind, concentrate on this breath. And you close your eyes and you listen to it. But we notice as soon as we start to give our mind a single point of attention, it works for the first 5 to 10 seconds, and then something is spacing out. And it's this way and that way, quite naturally. The practice of dharana is to start to modify that tendency in the moment. Not by like over contracting and being like, another thought that was a distraction. Allow the mind to do this, allow the mind to do that, yet don't allow the mind to be in charge. Okay, the mind is going to do this, the mind is going to do that, but oh my mind, concentrate on the breath. Kind of steward the mind gradually in that direction by every time you notice that the mind is going elsewhere from whatever the point of focus of the exercise, the kriya, is. Every time you notice, no problem. It's not an analyzation process. It's more of like a courtship. And if you're courtshipping with you shouldn't do that, you're never going to make love. It has to be something more gentle, something that doesn't contract so much, so tight. My experience with the beautiful way to work with the mind, because the mind's so powerful, it can take you into total misery, total tornado of anxieties. The mind and its flowing potent emotions, and sometimes even everything feels like it's crumbling. You can concentrate your chi, and then you can start to listen. Numero dos. Number one, dharana, concentrating the prana, chi, life force. Number two, sunya, listening. Because by listening, the mind opens and expands. Sound is the ether, the akasha, tattva, earth, water, fire, air, space. Earth is fragrance. Water is taste, emotion. Saliva, the watery parts of your body, the watery parts of your mind. Fire is digestion. Fire is sight. Fire digests, and it's like photons, the sun, light. When you have eclipse, you have the moon come in front of the sun. So the sun energy gets eclipsed. Sun is your sense of what you are. Sun is your sense of identity. What are you proud of? But not the sense of necessarily what you are at the level of the mind, but deeper down. Sun is what they call the Atma, the part of you that is a constant, the part of you that is non-dying, the part of you that was never born. The great constant is the sun, in from that mythological context. And so that's why eclipse is so powerful to have for yogic practices and things like that, because there's a kind of total thinning of the veil during that time. But that also makes things edgy and prone to accidents. I saw a guy wreck right in front of me yesterday. And sometimes if you paying attention, these types of kind of a little bit stormy energy, stormy astral weather can be worked with. Now, the advantage of working with it as a yogi is that you can use it to your advantage. And knowing when this type of thing is happening is like certain things are going to be less like, maybe I'm not going to Vegas this weekend. It's not going to be as supported, to use a dramatic example. But what will be supported is to go deep and to drop into a meditative zone. And that is also extremely pleasurable. These are not just austerities. These are ways of pleasuring oneself. These are ways of keeping connected to pleasure, so you stay connected to joy. Because even the most difficult times have the great superpower of kind of showing you yourself. And when you get that is revealed to you, the revealing of the self is like the revealing of the field of bliss. These are not fluffy concepts. These are not New Age concepts. Yogis have been working with these principles and practices for literally thousands of years that we know of, maybe even longer, but that we know of historically. And so this stuff is just effective and it works. And yes, we can try to live forever. Now all of our good new technologies that have people very interested in immortality. Can we keep these bodies immortal? And people become very obsessive about this. And that, I think, is so great that we can prolong life. As much as we can prolong life, we always want to, for sure, of course. We want to stay with our loved ones as long as possible. We want to experience what all this is as long as possible. We want to keep being creative, but sometime you're going to die. And so the real immortality is not trying to keep the body alive forever, but it's to have an experience of the part of you that is non-dying, and to allow that to continue to open and open and open and open, so that death is not some sort of hard thing at the end, but a continuation of what's already been happening, an opening, an experiencing, a kind of coming into more and more reality. And so that, you may find, is a very blissful thing. And it gives wisdom to all the other things in life, every different of the 12 domains. First house domain is your sense of what are you, your body, what are you in this lifetime? How are you made up of? What's your wiring like? What type of personality is there? What type of basic talent, strengths, and weaknesses are there? You can see that in the person's first house. Second house is your financial world and your resources and food and your close-knit family. Third house is a house of your siblings, if you have. It's the house of communication. It's the house of all the errands and the busy things that you're doing every day. Every time you're typing on your phone, this is happening in the third house. Every time that you're doing little errands here and there, this is happening in the third house. Yeah, eclipse happening in the third house. Maybe you might see an accident or something like this in that domain of life, your local hood, something like this. You could also see something totally magical, and like a rainbows or something really odd and mystical. Eclipses are tough because what they do, you can prepare all you want, but what they tend to do is they get to you where you're not looking. And that's why they're so good, because they kind of reveal blind spots. And if you're interested in revealing blind spots, why? Because you're just getting happier, but in the moment it's tender and it hurts and it's hard. But you're willing to do the work because it's going to make you more blissful in the longer run. And that's cool, because bliss is a sustainable thing. It's not some fluffy thing that's stimulated out of superficial means, but it comes from the deep work and the opening that comes out of the deep work. So that's most beautiful. Fourth house is the house of mother and the home and your basic sense of satisfaction, happiness. Fifth house is romance and children and things that you're studying and prosperity. Fifth house. Sixth house is disease and health. Seventh house is marriage and partnership. Eighth house is unexpected transformation and change. Death, Kundalini. Ninth house is your great Dharma, your great purpose. 10th house is what you do in the world with that Dharma. 11th house is what you attain from doing the Dharma. 12th house is when it all goes back into the ocean of consciousness. And so that's what all of this activity in the sky right now in this moment, Sun, Moon, Saturn, Rahu, Venus, Mercury, 6 of the planets, so meaning like most of the psyche, is dwelling in the constellation of Pisces, the natural 12th house, like the ocean of consciousness. So all of this brings a strong spiritual emphasis. Pisces is probably the most spiritual sign. It's the most etheric water sign. And so it's not like a dense water, but it's more like the subtle water, the ocean of consciousness. And that's a very blissful experience if you can kind of get inside of that. So that's what we're going to do today. That's to make all of this more simple. Is that what we're going to do today is concentrate the chi, listen, open up this expansive mind, and then third, so you can start to experience shunya, 0 point, zero gravity point. That takes a little bit of work, but today you'll get a nice taste of it, and to enjoy. It takes the anxiousness off the nervous system. It eases and soothes the mind. It opens up the channels that are quite pleasurable. But first, it takes a little bit of work. So please come on your hands and knees or start to move the body. We're going to start to soften up the spine. Thanks for watching on YouTube. Best easy way to stay in touch with us. Hit the subscribe button here. You'll see our videos when they come up. If you enjoyed this one, hit the like button. It'll help more people see it, help the channel grow. I appreciate you watching.